This is your lecture video for section 4.1. We will read and write decimal numbers in this section. To get you started, I want to tell you that fractions are used to represent parts of a whole, and decimals are also another way for us to show parts of a whole. For example, our money system is based on decimals. You know this because when you write $1.02, you would write 1.02. $1 is divided into 100 equal parts. So 1 cent is represented by 0.01. This is one of the parts. A dime is represented as 0.10, and this is 10 of the parts. All right, so let's move on and look at this image. I want to tell you that when we write a decimal, something that looks like this, that the dot right here is what we call our decimal. Sorry, if I could spell it, that'd be great. Decimal point. And a decimal point represents that dot. When we read this, when we get to that decimal point, we say the word "and" when we're reading a number. Okay, and so we'll come back to this information in just a minute, but first we're going to look at the image that you see on the screen. We are going to write a fraction based on what you see. So to do that, we need two different numbers. We need to count the total number of rectangles or pieces in this rectangle. And we get 10. So our bottom number or our denominator is 10. And then we need to count how many pieces are shaded. And I got 7, and so that 7 is my numerator. As a fraction, it is 7/10 of this shape is shaded. And as a decimal, since we read 7/10, we would do 7 in the tenths place. Okay. If we're not sure about the place values, I'm going to show you a place value chart to help this make sense. You might want to write this down because you will use this over and over and over. Before we use this chart that you see here, I want to also teach you that a whole number of 8 has a decimal place that follows it. Same thing with a larger number, 306. The decimal place is at the end of those two numbers. So you'll be able to see and read your numbers correctly. All right, so we're looking at the chart, and I'm going to give you a number. We're going to write it in, and then we're going to identify what numbers are in what place values. So the number is 178.36. We read numbers on the right side of the decimal place and the left side. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to read this. So we're going to read exactly what we have, and we have 178. Notice that I didn't say 178, right? We say "and" when we get to this number or this decimal place. So we have 178 and what do I see? I see 36, and then you name the place values that it's in. So I have 178 and 36 hundredths. Okay, so we're going to practice this. Oops, sorry, I took the wrong thing out of there. We're going to practice this over and over as we go through this, but first for this one, we're going to identify what numbers are in what place values. So for this one, they're going to ask us about the tenths. What number's in the tenths place? Well, because we have this chart, we know that the 3 is in the tenths place. What number is in the hundreds? Hundreds and hundredths are different. Notice there is a THS on the end of all of the decimal numbers, meaning they're on the right side of the decimal point. So we know which ones we're finding. Oops, sorry. We know which one we're finding, either the whole numbers or the decimal numbers based on if it has a THS at the end of it. And notice that this one does not have a THS on the end of it, so we're talking about 1. The next number that we're looking for is in the hundredths place value. And what number's in the hundredths place value? Good, 6. The next one is the tens place, no THS, just TENS, and we find that our 7 is in that place. The last one, oops, sorry, not an A, an O, O-N-E. The ones place value. And ones, notice there is no once, no THS on the end of a one word. On the decimal side, we start with tenths on that. So the ones, there's only one category that is ones, and that's a whole number, and that's where we found our answer of 8. Also, you know that every 3 numbers on the right side of a decimal, on the left side of the decimal, we would count 1, 2, 3, comma, 1, 2, 3, comma. On the left side, on the right side, good grief, there are no decimal places in these there are no commas in the decimal place number area. So what am I saying? Just like we put these commas in over here, where we counted 1, 2, 3, comma, we won't count 1, 2, 3, comma on this side, because that is not what we do in the decimal side. Okay, so that commas only happen to separate whole numbers on the left side of the decimal place. All right, next one we're going to do is we're going to write these numbers in words. So you read from left to right. So we are going to look at the left side, and I see the number 0. I don't have to write the word number 0, okay? I don't have to write it in. So I go ahead and I look on the right side, and what do I see? I see 9. I wrote the word that I see. Now I'm going to write the place value that it is in. So 9/10. Final answer. So you write what you see, starting from left to right. When you finish on the right side and you write your last number that you see, you then write the place value. So let's try another one. Number is, okay, so there are no numbers on the left side. So we're just going to leave that alone. On the right side, I see what? Remember, it's not 918 because the and is the decimal. So it's just 918. And I wrote the whole word that I have, 918. So I write the place value that we end in, and it's thousandths. So to read this, I read what I see, 918, and then the place value, thousandths. Final answer. All right, the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to have a number in numerical terms. We're going to write it as a fraction, and then we're going to write it in words. So here is our actual starting problem. 3/10. Notice that tenths means 10, hundredths means 100, thousandths means 1,000, and 10,000s means 10,000. Okay, so when we're writing things as a fraction, you write what you see over what the denominator place value says it is. So 3/10 as a fraction is 3/10. To write this as into words, you go back up here like we did before, and we see 3. We write the place value that we have, and it's tenths. So these would be my answers. Okay, let's try another one. Next one is 0.49. I see 49 over 100, right? Because hundredths means 100. If I read this, then I read the number that I have on the right, and I see 49. And it ends in the hundredths place, so hundredths. 49 hundredths and 49 over 100. Okay, let's try another. All right, what do I see? Well, I see 106, right? 106 over what? 10,000? How did I know that? Because it says 10,000, right? So here's my first answer. The next answer is going to be write what I see, and I see 106. And notice that I did not write and it's over 10,000, or in that 10,000ths place value was where we end at, so that's where I get 10,000ths. So those are my answers. Okay. All right, we're going to go the other way. I'm going to give you words and you are going to write it out. All right, 3 different problems. So the first one is going to be 16 9/10. The second one is going to be 482 3500. And the last one is 63 thousandths. So we're going to do each one of these. The reason I left the chart at the top is because it's going to be helpful for us. Notice that we're going to represent and in every one of these as a decimal. And the last one, there is no and, which means that it goes at the beginning of this problem. When we write the numbers on the left side of the decimal, we just write what we see, 16. When we write numbers on the right side of the decimal, we start by seeing the place value and going up here and noticing that it's in the first blank, so we only get one blank for this. Okay, because tenths is the place value that's represented, so I write one blank because the first blank is tenths, and then I fill in the blank with the number that I see. So 16.9 or 16 9/10 is my answer. So we're gonna do the same thing again on the second one. 482. 482. And then I have 35 hundredths. Well, now notice that hundredths is 1, 2 place value, so I have 1, 2. And now I fill in the blanks with my number, 35. So 35. So 482 decimal 35, or 482 and 35 hundredths. All right, so the next one, same thing. We are on the right side of the decimal, so we need to count my decimal places. And so I'm at thousandths. So I have 1, 2, 3 for thousandths. 1, 2, 3 for thousandths. 63 is what I'm going to write in. Notice that if I write in 63, I still have this other blank. And if I put in a 0 here, this is not 63. That is 630. So when we have more blanks than what we need, we will always fill them in the far right side of them. So 1, 2, 3 for tenths, hundredths, thousandths. The 63 is going to go to the far right side, and that extra spot there gets a 0. So when you look at this number, do you see 63? Yes. So we know that we did this right. Thousandths means tenths, hundredths, thousandths, so 3 place values. So this is correct. Right. That ends your 4.1.